So now let's turn our minds to care beyond Earth. In our next roundtable, this wonderful panel that's joined me on stage will consider health in space. So please welcome the moderator, who is the CEO of Space Pharma EU, Paul Camun.
Okay, thank you very much. Thank you very much, everybody, for being there. People could think that it's an exotic session. It's not exotic at all, and we are going to try to show you why. Clearly, for everybody knows that space applications have been changing the world. Everybody knows about telecom, Earth observation, astronomy, positioning, GPS. But not everybody knows that it's going to change the world in life science and health. This is a new domain. It's a new revolution for space. It's a new domain where space has not been used very much commercially. It's a new domain for health. Most of the health sector don't know about it. One of our goals is to try to bring this knowledge more and more to these communities. People had tended to believe that doing health research from space is a kind of niche, kind of niche market. Could be niche in commercial. Actually, it's not a niche. It's a full world. And that's what people don't realize. It's a new world which is opening. It was a niche when, for 20 years, there has been close to 3,000 experiments on the International Space Station to demonstrate what is changing in physics, in chemistry, in biology. Now it's opening to the commercial domain. So now it's a new world. How come it's a new world? How come it's not a niche anymore? First, as everybody has seen on TV, it's much easier to access space with a cost which is going tremendously down. So you can make a space experiment for the price of a round trip to Los Angeles from Paris, which was not the case 10 years ago. That's number one. Number two, there will be, in a few years, less than 5 years, many private space stations which will replace the International Space Station, which will, even the ISS is going to live for a few more years, those private space stations are going to change the game. That's something new also. Number three, miniaturization of technologies, which means you can do system much smaller and much lighter, which means the cost also is going down. And finally, there has now been progress on regulations with FDA working with NASA, in Europe, ESA working with EMA, and much more. So just that was the introduction to tell you that it's a new world which is opening. It's the first time, I think, that we speak officially about space in a real big life science, life health conference. It will be happening more and more. We are organizing the Health from Space conference in Cannes since 2 years. It will be again next year. We have a specific session on cosmetics next year in the big international cosmetic congress in Cannes. So it's moving, but it's not moving fast enough because these innovations can bring a solution for the patients. We talked before about the rare disease. We're going to talk about it again. So I don't want to spend more time. There will be a lot to say, but we have all these guests. Each one has a lot to say about what he's doing already. And I will start with Azita from Roche Diagnostics. So Azita, maybe you can say a few words about your activities.
Hello, everyone. Thank you for the invitation to this roundtable. I'm Azita Jalilvand. I am the medical director of Roche Diagnostics in cancer, and we are specialized in developing a companion diagnostics assay where we identify specific biomarkers for cancer and develop the test to select patients and also targeted therapy for this type of cancers. And this all within the context of precision medicine and personalized medicine. Recently, I proposed a research project using the 3D bioprinting technology to fabricate human tissue mimics as control and reference material to improve these assays for patients and have less false positive and negative type of results. And that's where I started a collaboration with Space Pharma, the European Space Agency, ESA, and the MEDES.
Okay, good afternoon, everyone. Thank you, Paul, for this very good introduction. So, you simplify a lot my intro. My name is Gianluigi Valdesi. I'm the head of the Venture and Financing Office. On one side, for those who don't know, ESA is an international organization with over 22 member states, which are really joint forces to support the development of, let's say, the research and company in developing product and service for peaceful purpose. So we are, in Europe, we have been very, very active in the last 50 years, which goes from, let's say, developing rockets, developing satellite, but also all the activity of the ISS, so the International Space Station, including also the launch of the astronaut. So all the European astronauts are under our, let's say, are a colleague of mine. And therefore, on one side, as Paul mentioned, ESA has been focusing a lot on developing, creating startup, developing technology. But more and more, we are, let's say, making the shift of how we can help company in the business development. That's why we created a commercialization department. And with my role is really helping company in the growth phase, on identifying new opportunity, but also to attract investors to support their growth. We stop here, and I think we'll elaborate later.
Hello, my name is Jean-Philippe Anoro. I'm the CEO of Medesia. So Medesia, at the beginning, has nothing to do with space. We are a company involved in research in rare disease on Earth. How we come to think about this jump to space. Just to explain, we are a company trying to focus on identifying new drugs for very incurable diseases, and this is why we have every time to revisit our mind and revisit our hypothesis. It's a very difficult achievement. And for that, we just imagine that one day, what if some spacionauts on space can suffer for exactly the same symptom that we can have in some very rare disease, and how we can address that. So we try to make some bibliography, and we just end up with a very striking bibliography results, saying that in space, with the absence of gravity, one single element of your cell is missing very rapidly, which is the cilia. And the cilia is a very, very important organelle for the cell because it could be viewed as the Pictos probe, in a plane, something that's very sensitive to the exterior environment. So in space, for long stage, you are suffering for diseases that could look like rare diseases. And we have on Earth 8,000 different rare diseases, and this matter also to think and anticipate what could be solution for long space flight that will, develop some diseases for spacionauts who are embarked in the vessels. So very, very pragmatically, what we are doing now is we are trying to make this comparison between a genetic impact on cells and a gravity or absence of gravity impact on cells. And by that, we can also devise the same drugs, which is not drugs, which is countermeasure, because the spacionauts are not healed person. It's countermeasure that has a high value because this is some molecule that also be useful to achieve the long space in a good condition for the next odyssey on Mars and behind. So that's exactly the thing. So this is the first chapter. But the second chapter is how we can devise new ideas on a pharmacological specimen, a cellular, that is in absence of gravity. This is something, an experiment you never does. never do. Absence of gravity is not something intuitive, but we can create stimulation and discover new pharmacological targets and new drugs that will counteract the lack of gravity, and then also mimic some diseases that you have specifically with the absence of gravity, which is, in general, the problematic with the cartilage and the bone resorption. Voilà, this is the link between the company. And today we have involved different collaborations with INSERM, very, very serious matter. There is laboratory at INSERM that are specialized in the study of the impact of the absence of gravity on human animals. And we are trying to make this link with some phenomena that we do observe in rare disease and make the jump and the link to propose common pharmaceutical approach and treatment. Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Jean-Claude Vecchiato. I'm a partner of Bird & Bird, leading the global space activity. So Bird & Bird is a law firm. It's an international law firm. We have 1,500 lawyers around the world in more than 30 offices. And we cover most of the activities of our client. Bird & Bird is centered on technology. We will help our client. Our strategy is to help our clients in technology change. So we are structured by sectors to help our clients. And what's interesting here is that we are at the crossroads of several sectors. Life science, of course, where we are very present in all our offices and we have very strong expertise, but also space and technology. So we try to gather all this. And my activity is I work for governments to put in place regulations, to help governments to write laws and regulation in the space sector. I work for manufacturers, I work for investors, and I also work for startups to help them grow. And my job is really to help them raise finance and put in place the right framework to help them to grow. And we will talk a little bit more about this.
And on my side, so I'm Luc. I'm one of Alcimed partner. I've been in the company for 15 years. I'm heading our activities in healthcare for our Parisian office. In few words, the activity of Alcimed is to explore and develop uncharted territories. We are a kind of consulting company. And doing so, we spend our times investigating innovation. And when you work on innovation, you know that there are tons of innovation to find at the interface between different sectors. And even if space and pharma are quite far away one from the other, because there are very few people in healthcare who know about space and very few people in space, I think, who knows about healthcare. Actually, we've been exploring multiple perspectives around the connection between space and the health industry.
Okay, thank you, Luc. Thank you, everybody. Thank you all. So we're going to start with the first question. The first question we'd like to discuss in the panel is how to bring more health solutions from space to Earth. Just as an introduction, I think, as I mentioned before, space is a new world, is a new environment. It's probably the most disruptive innovation environment available today for scientists to solve disease. Only 500 diseases out of thousands have a solution. So the question is, how can we bring solution from this new environment to Earth? So maybe I start with Luc, because he's really the innovation company working across the board. So Luc, what would be your feeling on that?
I can start with a broad picture on how you could see the interface between health and healthcare and space, and then maybe I will give the floor to Jean-Philippe to narrow down on the specific application. Once again, there are tons of innovation to find at the interface between different sectors. And actually, even if they are very far away, space and healthcare, you can make tons of bridge between them. The first one is the direct application. As mentioned by Paul and by Jean-Philippe notably, you can see space as a very specific environment where you could make some discoveries, explore, and basically use a specific condition of that environment to make some discoveries. And that's a very first direct link you can find between healthcare and space. A second one, and we have explored that a lot for companies, ESA, CNES, and so on and so forth, is using the distance between space and healthcare. And actually, there are tons of applications also there, and the more we will progress, the more those applications will reach the markets. I can mention maybe just two of them. Today, you can use SATCOM, so satellites operating in communication, to develop telehealth in countries or regions where people do not have access to telehealth. So you have a way of making a solutions, but coming from space. Another angle of approach is to use terrestrial observation to make some prediction about specific situations, like the development of mosquitoes. And when you are able, using some metrics, to predict where mosquitoes will arise the most, then you may have an indicator predicting where some epidemics can arise in the future. But also from the healthcare industry perspective, you may have the opportunity to think about where to locate the sites of your clinical developments. Because when you want to test the vaccines, obviously you want to be as close as possible to your patients and to the one who will face your conditions. And so using such technologies is a new possibility. And I can go more and more discussing with pollutants, how by assessing from space how many pollutants you have in the air, you can predict the development of respiratory symptoms in some populations, of allergies and stuff like that, completely getting out of the usual system, which is to have few stations météo located across the world, and then you have to triangulate the information. And finally, the last thing is maybe more theoretical, but very interesting. There are tons of parallel between the exploration of space and the exploration of healthcare. And actually, just to give you an example, the exploration of space and the exploration of healthcare rely on the same very fundamental principle, which is the ability to observe. As soon as you are able to observe, you are able to find something. And once you want to observe something, you need to invest into some technology, imaging, and stuff like that. And you have exactly the same drivers in those two environments of investing in technologies to have better imaging and deriving from those imaging new discoveries. Telescope, microscope. Today, James Webb ESULT, the new MRI. And tomorrow, there would be other technologies like that and the same kinds of bridge between space and healthcare. So just to give you the big picture, and maybe we can zoom into one of those interfaces, which is a direct one, and notably how you can explore the potential of space to solve healthcare real problems on Earth. Jean-Philippe.
Very easy question. Thank you. What is very striking is that when you do the bibliography of the recent 20 years on that question, what is the specific challenge that provide space on biological systems, it comes all over the place. I mean, this is everything as a very simple remark or simple observation that sometimes very difficult to reproduce. This is a fact. So it's difficult to sort out. But there is one constant, one thing that comes over and over, is the concept that in space, the biological time is not the same at Earth. So it looks like when you do experiment on senescence, aging, apoptosis, mechanism of death of the cells, it doesn't come the same way, the same speediness that on Earth. So saying that, this is a key, as you said, Luc, observation. So how you use this material of observation to decipher new mechanism of senescence. And this is exactly what we have to do. For us, this is crucial because a lot of these diseases are accelerated senescence or something that happened that trigger apoptosis that it shouldn't. And the way we have new material is the new challenge, and we can have new comparative display to identify new targets. So what we are bringing back from space to Earth first is new target. The second thing that we can have also is to understand the hypogravity or microgravity or no gravity, which is la traduction de la pesanteur en fait. We have also the reverse. We have to think about the hypergravity. So, of course, it's difficult to reproduce hypogravity on Earth, but it's easy to do hypergravity. So how we can use the knowledge of the hypogravity, the microgravity, to challenge cells, challenge biological systems with hypergravity. So I said, look, we don't know what we will discover, but what we'll be sure is we have to learn also what is existing now. So we are able to reimplant cells from, isolated from patient and reimplant in patient, for instance, in cancer. So how about challenging cells with hypergravity? What will we change? What will be the different observations we can do? And what will be the fruit of this reimplantation? So what we can take is 2 targets, new targets, and second, the link between the microgravity and hypergravity, which is a new vector force that will be studied to challenge the biological system.
Yeah, thank you, Jeffrey. Maybe following on what you said, one of the important topics that we know is that gene expression is changing in space. I know Azita is working in some similar project. Can you say how you can bring this knowledge back to Earth?
Yeah, definitely. Definitely, I agree with everything you said, and I think if we go back a little and having more general explanation about the benefit of research in space for Earth, I think, of course, is tremendous, and the discoveries that we can have in space that can benefit life and quality of life on Earth is tremendous. That's without question. But I think the difficulty is that, of course, we are doing a lot of wonderful research on Earth, but the level of the knowledge and technology that has been used for decades in space that we are not really aware of can help to accelerate this research on Earth and understanding of the medical and biology of the cells. And this is very important because the general public has no knowledge of these advances. We are definitely not at the same level. ESA and NASA and all the space agency have at least 60 years technology ahead of us. Everything that we have for climate change, for recycling of trash or water or air, or the imaging that we have in medicine, all the digital technology that is coming now in medicine, the AI, the robotics that we are using in surgery or in the data management of the patient medical information, all are coming actually from the discoveries and work that space agency have been doing for years and decades. So they are very complementary, but at the same time, not at all at the same level. So how we can, first of all, align and combine these knowledge and also interface the knowledge of what is important for patients on Earth and what is the goal in space, and how we can align these two and work together to have a stronger result and stronger research data. So of course, I think on Earth, the public information, but also the KOL, the subject matter expert in medicine, that have no knowledge whatsoever about what is going on in space and how this can help, or because I'm talking about my personal experience, everybody at work, my colleagues, they think that what I'm doing is a little science fiction, which is not at all. And I realized that nobody actually is aware of what we can do together and collaborate and partner in partnership. So I think bringing this information by exchange, by partnership, collaboration, but also continuing education of the medical fields, interdisciplinary exchange of the scientists in space agencies or medical facilities, because as Luc said, the medical field doesn't have the expertise in space and space vice versa. So we need to bring and connect these dots. I think this is what is missing, to connect the dots And so together stronger, we can accelerate the research for patients.
Okay, thank you, Paul. I really need to thank you for your intervention because you summarized it very well. I mean, last week I was in a conference with 5,000 investors, and I invited to give a talk to Samantha Cristoforetti, which is an Italian astronaut, second female that after Claudia Agneret that went to the space station, and she flew twice. And moreover, why I invite her to this conference was basically because she is in charge of a new project which is called Leo Cargo Return Service. So where ESA is basically partner, on one side with Thales in Space, on the other side with a startup called Exploration Company, which we are developing the new capsule that will be sending instrument in space and back, because of course ESA and Europe has access to the International Space Station, but in the future, let's say, will be decommissioned, so we'll let the International Space Station enter in the Earth, and will, let's say, will burn. So now, one of the points that I asked Samantha to provide is why we're sending air in space, why we're investing in space. And of course, the first part is really a no-brainer. There are thousands of experiment cases where there is a technology transfer due to space, telemedicine. We advance in many sectors, materials, 3D printing even. Now, on the other side, there is all what we've been discussing also so far, which is basically how the satellite data can support our life on Earth. However, the bigger challenge is really what we do in the microgravity. And the big gap that you just mentioned, we feel it a lot at the European Space Agency, which basically we are developing a lot of very expensive infrastructure in space. We are sending humans in space, so we are investing a lot. And we have hundreds, if not thousands, more thousand experiments where we have been funding as a grant experiment to use on all the variety of sector. And the question is really how we can move forward. We have tried now this new wave of the commercialization really to support the company, not only on the technical development, but also on the business development, as I was saying. But it's very hard. It's very hard because normally the people working on this, either they are specialized in, let's say, a more researcher, and on the other side, a more engineering developing instrument. And we see more and more companies launching themselves, identify new infrastructure, which we could use an automatic lab in space, even a cargo, as I was saying before. However, the bigger problem that they have is really to find the customers. And it's a very, very challenging exercise to connect the two worlds, because also your world is somehow not very open also for this research. And this company are really a little bit getting lost. So what you have done in the past, you have created a dedicated accelerator, if you want, that allow us in different vertical, life science and health with MEDES in France, which was supported by colleague from the exploration. We had other in agriculture, in materials. But I think it's really a collective exercise, and we need to, and that's why it's a pleasure to be here. I really also don't hesitate to reach me out and try to see, because we have a lot of let's say researcher companies are developing their business around this, but there is still a big gap between on the business development, if you want. There are less technical, but more in the business development.
So Claude,
I just want to add one little thing, not on the technical side, but more on the global aspect of research and development in space. I think this is a key element. You mentioned it, and I think it's also a key element for the general public to understand why we go to space. Because there is huge cost of going to space, and we can ask, why are we doing this? Why are we spending this money going to space where we could spend it on Earth? And I think showing the result is very important, to show what we can do, what we can achieve, if we can find solutions for special diseases, very rare diseases, for cancer, I mean, this could be something that could really help people understand why we need to invest in space. You mentioned that the International Space Station, will have to replace it within the next years. This will be a huge investment. Do we need to do it? I believe we do. And this is the kind of things where this kind of result and research is very important, and we should promote it much more. So thank you for this conference, and to publicize this much more on the general public.
You're right, absolutely. I think it's important to emphasize that there are already success stories with some new drugs, some therapies, and so on. It's important to emphasize that there has been a lot of R&D, of course. It's also important to emphasize that now the space community is moving toward in-space manufacturing of new drugs, production in orbit. Space Pharma actually got a contract from the European Union to build the first factory in space, to build monoclonal antibodies with specific properties which cannot be done on Earth. And there are many, many more things which can be done. So the question also is how to attract those new applications, and it goes through investors who are ready to participate in the projects. And so that's the next question: how to attract investors when we know that most of the space investors, most of them don't know about life science, and most of the life science investors have never heard about space except on TV with Elon Musk and SpaceX. So how can we change that? So Gianluigi, Investors Network of ESA.
Thank you for now let's do some advertise. I mean, really to facilitate, let's say, the access to finance to this company, because of course ESA is not investing in companies, not investing in a fund, but we are just focusing on supporting the company growth. We have created the ESA Investor Network, something that they started a couple of years ago. We're really with the objective of sharing the knowledge that we have about the sector, helping investors in their due diligence process, making at use all the know-how the European Space Agency has been built, but also on the other side, facilitating, let's say, the introduction of companies. So we have a newsletter where we have sharing company in the fundraising, and this has been very, very appreciated. It's not simple because we don't want to take any responsibility on advertise one investor or another. So we focus mainly on the technology, on providing our assessment on the market, and sharing the company. This has been a tremendous interest from the investor community. We have today 60 members of the ESA Investor Network, and we see the result also in the ecosystem, that we have a lot of more investors investing in space. In 2021, we had 600 million invest in space in Europe. Now we have 1 billion. This is growing. And what is interesting is basically we are targeting a very early stage investors, but we are more and more attracting late stage investors, even commercial bank, because we don't have to forget that investors are investing in a company where they are looking for a return, a fast return, because they take a lot of risk to invest on something that doesn't exist. So as ESA, we are trying really to the risk the investment, and with a lot of capacity building as well. Also, the event that I was referring is where we go, reach out to investors, explain them that space is not exotic anymore. space has a, let's say, has a tremendous impact, as I was saying before, about the data from space, but also the different opportunities that are in space. And this is also one of them.
Thank you very much, Gianluigi. Actually, Jean-Philippe, I know that Meditia is working very closely with some investors. They are now even entered your company. So maybe you can talk about your relationship with investors. How did you work it out? You coming from INSERM.
Yeah, it's like an orbit. It's an asymptotic fit. So we try to reach one point at one day. So we are working close with the investor. To be honest, there is no way for us to propose that we would have a business relying on finding at one point here a medication, right now for maybe spationaut on board. So that's not the thing that they are prepared of. But there is another thing that they are prepared of, is that what if the space stimulation, the microgravity stimulation, open the door to a new target that drive the senescence and the biological senescence. This is linked to aging. It's another game. So, and how much chance we have to modelize that on Earth? We have this installation at ESA that make the stimulation of microgravity, which is a random position machine, but it's not the same thing as absolutely lack of gravity. So this is not the same challenge. So we have to be inspired by this challenge, make this comparative display, understand why the biological clock there is not the same that here, and apply this new target pharmacologically with drugs. It's very simple. So maybe for Earth to space, we have to apply maybe what we know about rare disease to maybe help what could be happening there. But from space to Earth, it's more the mass market driving by the time, dimension. And of course, this is linked to aging and senescence. And that should attract at some point some investors.
Let's hope. It's a good point. Maybe actually both of you, Jean-Claude and Luc, you covered very wide range of topics. So wide, which means wide range of potential investors from different thematics. What is each of you your feeling on how to attract some investors, whether they come from space, whether they come from health, into this new, not niche, but world of discoveries from this new environment?
Just on this, I think there is, especially in Europe, there is a funding gap. So because the development is financed either through public money, and ESA is doing a lot in funding, but also in helping to fund, but also with venture capital and private equity. And this is where there are some issues. The figures may change from one source to another, but roughly EIB, the European Investment Bank, made a report a few years ago saying that there is a need for 1 billion, there is a gap of roughly 1 billion euro per year. So it means that we still need to attract investors. And the second point is that the early stages usually are financed, or at least they can get money through grants, etc. The difficulty is when you get to the commercialization, and this is where we have a really difficulty to develop. And this is where we need to help the investors, and ESA is playing a key role, or public entities, by structuring this, being anchor customers also, and helping them to structure this. Failing which, the risk is that the venture or the companies will look on the other side of the Atlantic, and the innovation will fly away. And that's a real risk we need to avoid.
And on my side, a very simple consideration. I believe that people invest only in what they are aware of and understand. And actually, when we talk about biological clock of cells in microgravity, it's less mainstream than artificial intelligence and obesity for investors. So I think the most important thing is to bring people close together. And as soon as I start discussing and interacting, I'm sure that the interest will arise for at least part of those people. So what is the missing link today? I think it's this connection. Putting people together in Congress, in rooms like this one, I remember a few years ago I organized a conference at LCMed on the parallel between the exploration of space and the exploration of the brain. And people were fascinating because actually we never think about that. It's too far away as topics, but there are so many different things in parallel and in common between those two elements that you can find some good ideas that have been developed in some field for the other. So bringing people together, congresses, conferences, symposium, whatever, that's a way to trigger both the innovation and the interest of investors.
Okay, thanks a lot, Luc. So we have less than a minute for last word of each of you. If you had to synthesize in one word what has to be done, let's start with Jean-Claude.
I think, as I mentioned, I think it's promote this idea, to the general public and more generally to investors.
More interactions. Jean-Philippe.
We are trying to make a clear demonstration and a POC, proof of concept, for your next Congress, Paul.
Okay, success stories. Gianluigi.
Maybe the word is sharing. If you share more your challenge, you can drive, let's say, the technology further.
Yes, definitely. Anything we can do to improve health for patients on Earth. If possibilities in space can give us this opportunity, we need to use that.
Okay, actually, that's a good last word. We have a fantastic opportunities in our hands. Let's hope that it can work out for patients for whom there is no solution today. So thank you very much to all the assistants. Thank you for the panelists. Thank you.